While Cincinnatians have been gazing upwards at all their new tall buildings, they haven't noticed the most exciting construction of all, underground. Nothing on earth compares with what you will experience when you shop under the earth. Straight down, underground, where high prices will never see the light of day, where pollution is non-existent, and where the enormous energy savings of a naturally comfortable year-round climate get passed on to you. Does it sound unbelievable? Keep listening for more details as we approach the grand opening of... I'm sorry, we can't give it away just yet. But remember this name, Plummet Mall. The best value in town is a hole in the ground. Plummet Mall, opening in Greater Cincinnati soon.
Welcome to Tales, Tunes, and Tomfoolery starring Jerry Springer, along with Gene Galvin and me. I'm Megan Hills. We're recorded live in front of a brilliant studio audience at the Folk School Coffee Parlor in Ludlow, Kentucky.
My daddy came home.
And now here he is, ladies and gentlemen, the one and the only Jerry Springer.
Thank you, thank you. Whoa. Thank you. Thank you. And way in the back there, thank you.
Yeah, way back there. Hey, by the way, he's just left. There was an elderly gentleman that when you came in, had a hearing aid. What was that all about? I just saw you talking to him.
Gentleman, an older gentleman, and he had this new hearing aid, and he says, Jerry, this is the finest hearing aid money can buy. Well, I didn't know what to say, so I said, well, what kind is it? He said, 4 o'clock. Okay.
Just wait for it.
Whoever laughs, we know it's the first time here. That's the test. That's the test. I told that joke, surprisingly, when I was doing Price is Right this weekend. In Cherokee, North Carolina, actually.
Oh, yeah, Smoky Mountains.
Yes. Oh, it was beautiful there.
Yep.
And
Native American Casino.
Yes,
probably where
that's
you
where I was. Yeah, that's where we did the show. And I'm here to tell you, they laughed at that joke.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. There's the proof. Hey, Megan Hills normally gives the intro to Jerry and does a whole bunch of stuff on this show. She's the third member of our team, but she's on a cruise. I think she's cruising for the next 2 months. She just goes off, I'm going on a cruise.
Yeah, is this in her contract?
I don't know. I've never had a contract with anybody who works for us. Well, she runs the HR department of Jerry Springer podcast, so I guess her contract is whatever she wants it to be at any given moment.
Exactly.
Anyway, so Megan's not here tonight, and I got to tell you something. I was thinking about my brother Jerry. I have 2 brothers, Jerry and Jim, and there's something that we're taught in Catholic schools. We all share the same God. You're Jewish, I'm Catholic, but it's all Yahweh at the end of the day, and we're all going to the same place, aren't we?
Well,
I know we're going to heaven.
You and I are going to the same place. I don't want to include all the other people. That's unfair to them.
But, so we were taught in Catholic schools that the Almighty God, all-knowing God, has given each family a picture, a receptacle, might be a big can or a box of creativity. And a family gets a finite amount of creativity, and they can use it as they choose.
This is what you learned in Catholic school.
I did learn that, 7th grade. And my family, in the case of the Galvin family, I have a brother, Jim. He has a PhD from Harvard in science, in nuclear physics, to be specific,
that's exactly
nuclear health. So he didn't use much of the creativity. He said, you guys go ahead. I'm okay. I'm going to go like another direction. And my mom and dad didn't use much creativity. My damn brother, Jerry, used up a lot of it. That's why when I come in here and you're always bitching at me about come up with some new ideas.
You've got zilch.
About all I got is a Ludlow City bus.
Yeah.
That's about all I got.
Yeah.
And that failed in 4 months.
Yes. In my religious training, we call it bupkis.
But I got bupkis.
You've got bupkis.
In my religion, we call it jack shit. That's about all we got. But anyhow, I got bupkis.
Yeah.
So, and I presented my brother, because my brother came up with the commercial we just heard for Plummet Mall in Cincinnati.
Yes.
And if you drive around Cincinnati today, all they'll say on these commercials, because it's all a mystery, is look for a big pile of dirt. And that's probably where they're building, because it hasn't opened yet, Plummet Mall.
Yeah.
Down underground. He and Jay Gilbert are the ad men behind this. And so he has a lot of creativity. My brother Jerry has.
And
he's the star of my family.
Well, it's not difficult to
You don't. and I noticed you didn't. You didn't argue against that. You just said, "Well, that's
no." But
that's
I
not
will
hard.
say,
It's not a
on
high
a serious note, for and I assume people outside of this area didn't know that, but there was this radio program at least 10 years ago, on for quite some time on Sunday nights, called The Stupid Galvin Brothers.
That was it.
That was you and brother Jerry.
Yeah.
And I'm saying that with you here. That was the most. It really was the most creative, offbeat, funny radio. Period. I mean, the morning shows now, the morning zoos. They're always trying to do. You guys were fantastic. And
it was all my brother Jerry, though. I just came in. I was the second voice.
Well, I assumed that.
Yeah,
and,
right. So I think I paid my brother back one time because my field, my wheelhouse is education.
Yes.
And I love working with kids my whole career who had complicated lives. And I love those kids, and I loved them more because of what they came through to be what they were when I met them. And the crazier, the tougher, the more complicated, the better. So when I retired from Cincinnati Public, I talked to a guy who was running a school for adjudicated felons, so teenagers who had committed felonies. So these are some troubled kids and some really tough stuff. So I did the interview, and the guy said, "Dude, I want to hire you. You're perfect for this." I wasn't going to run the school. I was going to actually work teaching the school. And he said, the last thing you got to do, and we've all had to do it, and I mentioned this on another episode, is you got to take a lie detector test. And he said, "Are you willing?" Because a lot of people that he would interview, like, that was it. They departed at that point. I'm not taking a lie detector test for any job. Yeah. I said, "I'll take it tomorrow. I'll take it this afternoon. I've always wanted to take one." Yeah. I think it would be an interesting life experience, and trust me, it was. And I go to this place a week or two later, right at a TV, man, this little office, dark little office, one light bulb hanging down, dingy. And the guy sits behind you, and he wires up all your vitals, and you don't get to look at him, and he starts asking these stupid questions like, "What's your name, and where do you live?" And he's getting all the baseline data. And this is where I turned on my brother Jerry, because he said to me, "Have you ever stolen from an employer?" And I said, "Hell yes, I have." Because I knew if you could take this test, tell the truth. Yeah. So I said, "Of course I have." And it was a long pause. He said, "Well, like what?" And I started telling him, a little of this, a little of that, going back to when I was in college. I said, "But my brother Jerry," and I said, he did, you can't, I started to turn his face forward. I said, "His name is Jerry Galvin. He lives on a street called Ononta on the east side of Cincinnati." Yeah. And I saw him. This is the truth. My brother Jerry, when he was in college and I was in college, we were working in this shoe store in Cincinnati. Yeah. When his girlfriends would say, "Jerry, we're going out Saturday night. I need a new pair of white leather heels," he'll say, "I got it." He'd walk over, slide out like a 6B, walk through the back door, and put him in his Triumph sports car. He put him in his car. And I said, "What the hell are you doing?" He told me, he says, it's kind of like if we were working in a restaurant and you were thirsty, you could go over and just draw a Coke. And he said, that's just, how it works. So I told him, I think he stole maybe $200 that I could witness. And I'm saying that now on a podcast. Because if I can get my brother Jerry out of circulation, I don't think there's much creativity left for my family. You know what I'm saying?
You just threw him under the bus.
Totally. I got to get him out of circulation.
Well, this is a town to throw him under the bus because we don't have any here.
No, there is no Ludlow City bus. And so anyway.
So you turned on your brother.
I had to. I had to. And by the way, we have...
I'm nervous now.
No, you got nothing to worry about.
Yeah.
Because you're family, too.
Yeah.
You are family,
Yeah,
too.
you'll
You're
turn
using a
on me
lot
in
of
a
the damn
second.
creativity also.
Yeah. Oh, man.
Hey, by the way,
Yes.
Joe's Truck Stop is coming up.
Yeah,
Let's hear it for
whoa!
Joe's Truck Stop. So we love it as we do this podcast. We always promote an up-and-coming group from around the country. Joe's Truck Stop actually is from this area. And real fast, his story is trained at the Berklee School of Music up in New York, in Boston. Thank you from the audience, an assist from Harold in Boston. And trains as like a classical violinist, and he can do that if he needs to. But he also is a wonderful, I call it Americana fiddler. He's got this group along with Andy, also known as Feats, and they're going to perform in a little bit. And Jerry, what I want to ask you to do is something that I've been noticing, and you've noticed it, and I'd love to hear your comments on this. But over time, the Republican Party, after the Civil Rights Act of 1954, when they got the South, Democrats kind of gave it to them and said, take it. And they've always struggled with an image of, are they tolerant of prejudice, racial prejudice, and even racism, and even institutional racism makes it even worse. And are we seeing some things today with Donald Trump at the top? It's his Republican Party now. Are we seeing that even more clearly? What's your take on that?
Yeah, and well, let me say this: it's beyond politics. It's, in a sense, it's cultural, and many of us, and many people in the whole society are being sucked into this. Let me explain what I'm trying to say. I'm not saying, so let me start out with a disclaimer. I am not saying that if you're a conservative, therefore you're a racist, okay? So I'm not saying that, of course not. What I am saying is that in American history, the conservative movement has always been more tolerant of mistreatment of minorities. They just either don't put it on their radar. You know, some obviously are very much racist, some. And others just don't pay much attention to the issue. They're not bent out of shape if there's a great injustice. And so historically, obviously, the conservatives were the ones back in the 1800s and 1700s that supported slavery. They fought in the Civil War. After the Civil War, later on, the Jim Crow laws, conservatives were in favor of that. The conservatives opposed the Civil Rights Act, the Public Accommodations Act, the Voting Rights Act, you know, anything which seemed to help minorities, voter registration efforts. Conservatives, and to the extent they're reflected in the Republican Party, seem to always be on that side of an issue that involves racial injustice. And that's just statistically accurate. That part is not an opinion. What concerns me is that it has been a part of our culture for so long that it has seeped into the mainstream, that many people in the society, not necessarily even conservatives, just many white Americans, we don't recognize, or we aren't conscious, or it isn't on our radar screen when something has racial implications and it just doesn't grab us. For example, and I think I've mentioned this before, with Katrina 10, 12 years ago. And when you had the horrible Hurricane Katrina and what it did in the South, to New Orleans and Mississippi. Well, you remember in New Orleans, they took 10,000 people and put them in the Superdome. 10,000 people. 99% of them were African American. And they were there for several days. And they were running out of water. There was no air conditioning. I mean, it was just horrible, horrible. They didn't have bathrooms working. It was just a horrible situation. And somehow we couldn't get our act together and get the necessary helicopters there, buses there, whatever. And the example I always used, and we were getting reports about what was going on, but the administration and, frankly, much of the country didn't seem too bent out of shape. Oh, it's horrible. Hope they get these people out and then on to the ball game or whatever else you were doing that day. And I always give the example, imagine if the 10,000 people in the Superdome were 10,000 white, blonde-haired cheerleaders, high school cheerleaders, 10,000 of them in that Superdome. Can anyone honestly say that if there were 10,000 white, blonde, high school cheerleaders in the Superdome, that they would have been there for 3 days, 4 days, without being rescued? Come on. Every single vehicle in this country, boats, planes, helicopters, whatever, would be there to get them out. In other words, our response would have been, oh my God, this is the worst thing that ever happened. And that is part of our sensitivity. The reaction wasn't the same when they were all poor black people. Just this past 6 months, I'll give you 2 things that have happened. And I just read this one report. You know, a couple of weeks ago, Roseanne was canceled because of racist tweets she put out, and there had been a stream of them over the past few years. So her show got canceled. And that week was also the week that we discovered that in Puerto Rico, nearly 5,000 people died because of the hurricane. Not 20 or whatever the original number was, but 5,000. That story, they measured it, was covered on the network news 30 minutes for the week. 30 minutes of coverage on what happened to Puerto Rico. American citizens who happen to be non-white got 30 minutes coverage. Roseanne being canceled got 30 hours. That's our culture. Somehow, that was a bigger story than 5,000 American citizens dying because of a slow response and an inadequate response to the hurricane in Puerto Rico. Now, the canceling of Roseanne is a private enterprise decision, and a company has the right to do that. ABC is in the business to make money. It's a private company. And so it makes a decision based on, is this going to hurt our audience? Will this negatively affect our business? So they made the decision, they better cut their losses right away, and there went the Roseanne show. It was a business decision. Conservatives were really ticked off and said, how could you cancel, because she was a big backer of Trump and a very conservative show, and she had these racist tweets. And the conservative says, you cancel her, but then Samantha Bee, a late-night comedian, said this awful thing about Ivanka Trump. And she used a curse word, the C word, which you don't ever use. And she wasn't canceled. Obviously, there's a difference, a late-night comedian on a show where there's cursing going on all the time. That was a cursing, which is a different thing than something that is totally racist. But here's the problem. Put that together with the NFL decision that same week. The NFL, which said to the football players, you cannot take a knee out on the field during the national anthem, or your team will be heavily fined. If you feel like you can't stand, you got to stay in the locker room until the national anthem is over. Now, this is my opinion. I don't have empirical evidence. It is just my opinion. But my opinion is that this reaction that so many people have to the taking of a knee would not be the case if the guy that originally took the knee was a white quarterback. He'd get booed. There'd be letters to the editor. But you wouldn't get the kind of comments you get now on these call-in radio talk shows. And how many times have you heard since the football players started taking a knee Well, those black guys, they're making millions. They should be grateful they're living in this country. Look at the life they had. What are they speaking out? In fact, one radio talk show host said that LeBron James, who made a comment supporting them, that LeBron James should just shut up and dribble. It's this attitude which has spread out beyond politics into the culture where instinctively much of our population there's almost an inner resentment that black people protest. Black Lives Matter, big protest, and everyone gets angry. What are they doing causing all this trouble? How dare these athletes disrespect the flag? Tom Brokaw wrote that great book, The Greatest Generation. You know who was part of the greatest generation and perhaps the most courageous? The black soldiers during World War II. Can you imagine black soldiers going off, fighting to defend this country, many of them getting killed, maimed, wounded, coming back, and when they came back after fighting off Hitler or the Japanese, after doing that, they come back to America, and they couldn't go to the movie theater. They couldn't drink from the same water fountain. They weren't allowed to live in the same neighborhoods. They couldn't go to the same schools. Think about that. You risk your life for a country that treats you like that when you come back? How dare we question the patriotism of minorities in America when we have to be honest and say they really haven't been treated that well over the centuries? And so I don't think it's about the national anthem. It's the resentment that rich black athletes are speaking out. And yet, if we look at our history, they have been the leaders in the civil rights movement because they are the only people, at least initially, in the position of power and influence and recognition that can bring the issue to bear. Jackie Robinson in baseball, Muhammad Ali, the two Olympians, I think in 1976, that raised their fist. One was named Tommy Smith, I think. I apologize for not remembering the names of those two. But this continues, and now we're yelling at LeBron James and the football players because of what they're doing. We, as a society, have to be much more sensitive. It's not enough to go home and say, well, I'm not a racist. I never mistreat a black person or a Puerto Rican or a Hispanic person or whatever, or a Muslim. No, 99% of us don't. But that's not good enough. We have to recognize as a society how insensitive we are to the pain that they're not making it up. Why would they bother to make it up? To be hated by society, to get booed? Obviously, if they're going through all this, they must mean it. And that's the lesson I'm getting from the NFL boycott.
That was a good one. As we asked Joe and Andy to come up, hey, let me mention, I joke around, Megan Hills, who is a HR professional, is traveling this week, and so she does take a lot of cruises, Jerry. I mean, she does take a lot of cruises.
Yeah. But she takes them very nicely.
She takes them nicely. And one other thing I want to mention is we played, and you may hear it again in some other versions of it, Plummet Mall commercial. Those were done by Jerry Galvin, my brother. I love my brother. Yeah. Super creative. Jay Gilbert, his partner back then on this activity. And by the way, that was funded in 1984. That commercial's from 1984. Isn't that interesting?
That really is.
And it was funded by a conglomeration of radio stations in Cincinnati who wanted to prove during the doldrums of the winter when everything's kind of quieted down, people aren't going outside, not much fun being had, to show the power of radio, that if this only ran on radio stations, and it did, and the whole city was buzzing about where the hell is this mall?
Planet
and
Mall, yeah.
That that was 1984, and so good for all those radio stations that came together, hired and had enough wisdom to hire somebody from the Galvin family, along with Jay Gilbert.
Imagine that. They figured you had time available.
Yeah, well, that's right. Hey, Joe Mascherette. Hello, Joe. Hello,
Hey, Joe.
Andy. How you guys doing? Now, these are members of Joe's Truck Stop. You may have other members in addition to you guys, or
We
not?
do.
All right,
Yep.
but you guys are performing tonight, which we're very appreciative of. And can I hype this Joe's Truck Stop
Hype it up, Jene.
album? So for Facebook Live, this is called American Dreams. You can get it, by the way, at Folk School Coffee Parlor. Do you have another place people can download it on?
You can download it anywhere online, and you can order physical copies from our Bandcamp page.
Good deal. And that's Joe's Truck Stop.
Joe's Truck Stop.
And we love these guys. They are well known in this greater Cincinnati area, but they tour all over the place around the country. And Joe's gonna and Andy are gonna do a song. What are you gonna do?
Well, we're going to do one that we're going to dedicate to Ross Raleigh, who is the owner of the Southgate House Revival, and he just passed away last week.
Hold on, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
And I saw you, because we're Facebook friends, mention something about peaks and valleys of the last week. That's clearly one of the valleys.
That's one of them.
So how old of a guy was he?
I think he was 73.
Okay, and this came kind of suddenly, or had he
Around
been...
Jerry's age.
Yeah, just saying. I'm 65, so that relates more to Jerry than that.
I passed 73.
Yeah.
Okay. Then you're good. Then you're good. You're good.
Hey,
No,
Joe.
I'm on borrowed time now.
No, Jerry passed away about 2 years ago, by the way. But
I knew it.
You
I
knew
knew it.
did he die suddenly, or do you know that?
I don't know the whole story.
Well, that's sad, because the Southgate House Revival is a great place for roots music in this greater Cincinnati area.
Yeah.
So
It's a legendary venue.
All right, so song dedicated to the owner that died.
Yep. This is it's called The Moon Sang. It's on the CD. This goes out to anybody that's not with us that we love and miss. Party in the mountains, they hummed along. I swear that I heard your soul moving in the air. I heard your so long, and the rain beating down on my rooftop soothes me with its heavy pull, and the wind that's shaking my little house helps ground my troublesome soul. And if it snows again, I might go wander, watch the shadows swaying in the moonlight. Come spring, love unfolds with the blossom, and I'll still be singing your song. I'll still be singing your song. 7 years is all it was, it's all we got. Just long enough to listen to the music in your heart, and I hear the songs that we could sing and the tunes that we could play ring for no one to hear. And I can hear your song when I'm alone, as I grasp bows to the setting sun. Well, so it's past your time, and one morning you left mine, gone with the dew. I'll sing this song for you, and if it snows again, I might go wander, Watch the shadows swaying in the moonlight. Come spring, love unfolds with the blossom, and I'll still be singing your song. I'll still be singing your song. Watch the shadows swaying in the moonlight. Come spring, love unfolds with the blossom, and I'll still be singing your song. I'll still be singing your song, and I'll still be singing your song.
Bravo! Whoa!
Thank you.
Bravo!
That was outstanding. That's Joe and Andy of Joe's Truck Stop, and that is
Great
from
job.
your
Wow.
album American Dreams, and a great tribute to a guy that's ran and the place still lives on, Southgate House Revival. Jerry, as these guys are playing, I can't help think this because we're both 74. I'm about to go to 75. These guys are 20-something, 30-something. I don't know how old you guys are, but how old are you?
I'm 27.
27, late 20s?
That's disgusting.
And those guys, Jerry, are playing music in the exact style that when we came out of college, we were trying to play. And you're way, way better than we are. But it is so incredibly cool for us older folkies to hear this stuff, and that's kind of bluegrassy Americana style.
It lives
it's wonderful.
on. It's great.
That's a great song. Performed very tightly. I love it. Would you take us out on Down by the Riverside, and would you allow Jerry Springer to jump in on the second verse and see if he can destroy it?
While I'm still here.
Yeah.
G good?
L sharp is fine.
yeah. G'll be good.
I'm gonna lay down my heavy load down by the riverside, down by the riverside, down by the riverside. I'm gonna lay down my heavy load down by the riverside.
You've been listening to Tales, Tunes, and Tomfoolery, recorded live at the Folk School Coffee Parlor in Ludlow, Kentucky. Thanks to Patrick Kennedy for writing our opening song, and to you for listening. Check out our website at jerryspringer.com.
I ain't gonna study for no more. Ain't gonna study for no more. Ain't gonna study for no more.
Gonna lay down my sword and shield down by the riverside, down by the riverside.